Thank you so much for joining us here today. My name is Nichole Paschal, and I'm the Marketing Specialist here at Topaz Labs. And I'm also joined here by Ashley Robinson, our Product Manager. She'll be answering your questions along the way today. So if you have any questions, just go ahead and type them into your questions module. You can find that on the GoToWebinar panel on your screen. Today we are here for the introduction to Topaz Detail, which has advanced detail and tone enhancements. We will go ahead and just get started with our first image here. This is just a macro shot up close of a flower covered in water droplets. So first I'm going to make a background copy. Well, it looks like I've already done that. Let's get rid of it and I'll show you just in case you don't know how. Just drag this down right here. That will make your background copy, and we'll just go directly into Topaz Labs. Today I am using Photoshop CS4 as the host program. However, you are able to use detail within Lightroom, Aperture, iPhoto, and with our Fusion Express compatibility software, or you can also use detail in Photoshop Elements. So let's just go ahead and open it up. This is a Topaz plugin pre-processing pop-up. That does is it's just letting you know that the image is pre-processing. What detail does when it opens up an image, it internally separates your image into many different parts. So those parts are going to be small details, medium details, large details, and color is also separated from the base image. So you're able to manipulate that as well. Let me just go over a few things here in the interface to get you acquainted with it. Here obviously is your main window where you're able to see your image. Up here on the upper left of this particular window, you can toggle back and forth between your original and your preview. It's not really much of a difference right now because we haven't done anything to it. So also toggle back and forth between your preview. You can click on your left mouse button. I'm doing that right now, and you can see up here that it's going back and forth. You can also press your space bar, and that will do the same thing. Okay, over here on the left is our presets panel, and that is, as you can see when I kind of drag my mouse over the different presets, you can see that this little image here is actually a preset preview. So it gives you an idea of what these presets will do to your image. So let's just do bold detail. Ooh, all right. And that's original and preview. So you just click on it and it will change your image to whatever that preview is, or whatever that preset is, excuse me. Okay, down here on the bottom, you are able to save, delete, import, and export presets. I'll show you how to do this very shortly. If you come over here to the right, this is just kind of your viewfinder window. It tells you what you're looking at within your image. You can zoom in. As you can see, this little red box will tell you where you are within your image. You can press fit, where it will try to fit your image back into the preview. You can also go to 100%. And again, this little red box will tell you what you're looking at within this main image. All right, down here on the right, we have our 4 different tabs, our detail tab, tone tab, deblur, and color. Within each, you can manually adjust certain settings, and we'll go over that as well in just a moment. There's also a reset all button, which will reset everything back to 0 and give you the original image that you brought in. And then the I feel lucky button, which is kind of just a random button. It'll randomly select different settings for each slider. So you can keep pressing that. We put that there just to kind of get the creative juices flowing, and you know, sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you don't. So it's just something to play around with. All right, so let's go ahead and just do a simple, I'm going to go ahead and reset all first. On this image, my goal is just to enhance the details a bit, bring them out within these water droplets here. I want to see a lot of this detail that's a little bit fuzzy. Within nature images, bringing out that detail is really essential, and having the right tone within the colors will really draw your eye to the right places. So what I'm trying to do is just do a simple detail and tone enhancement with this particular image. And then I'll show you how to save your presets and to use it on future images. So let's go over here to our different tabs with the different parameters in each one. In the Detail tab, you will see the small detail, small boost, medium boost, large detail, and large boost. Small detail, medium detail, and large detail are pretty self-explanatory. At the 0 setting, it's not going to affect your image at all, but if you increase it, your small detail is going to start becoming a little bit more detailed, a little bit more crisp. And if you decrease it, your small details can become a little bit more smooth. Sometimes it's just as important to reduce the detail within your image, so we definitely have that option here. Your small boost is directly correlated to your small detail slider. The small detail, medium detail, and large detail are your main controls within your detail manipulation, and are generally the best starting point for your adjustments. And then once you see where you are, I suggest going back and playing with your boost sliders if needed. Your boost sliders are used to refine the weaker details within that parameter. So your small boost is going to refine the weaker small details. Your medium boost is going to refine the weaker medium details. So let's see what it does. Let's play with the small detail one first. So I'm going to push this small detail pretty high just to show you how it correlates with the small boost and how strong and intense you really can get with this program. And that's something to not only know but also watch out for. You don't want to overdo it necessarily. So let's put this at 0.75 just to start out with. It definitely brought out a lot of small detail within the veins of these petals and the edges and interiors of these water droplets. Now, if I wanted to take this small boost up to, let's say, 0.25, when my small detail slider is at 0.75, let's see what happens. Wow, definitely a huge transition. So let's show you again, down to 0. Okay, now this is where my small detail slider is 0.75, and just going up to 0.25 on my small boost makes a huge difference. Really brightens up that contrast in between your detail, and it's definitely too strong for my taste. So, but just letting you know what detail can do here. Let's take this back down to 0, and now my small detail slider I'm going to take down to 0.25. Okay, now my small boost I'm going to put in the same setting, which was 0.25. Let's see if it's still as strong. Nowhere near so. All right, so you can kind of see how it correlates. The stronger your small detail slider is, the stronger your adjustments within the small boost will be. And the same thing for your medium and large detail as well. So let's go ahead and set some of these detail sliders and then move on to the next tab. I'm going to put this boost back down to 0. The small detail at 0.25, I'm just going to put that up just a little to 0.3. So here's my original, and there's the small detail. It's not a huge increase, but it's definitely starting to clarify those water droplets a bit. So let me show you again. Here is the original, and the preview. Okay, I do want to take my small boost up just to about let's try 0.1. Yeah, I like that. What that did was bring out just the details within the petals themselves. So I really like that. So let's just keep going here. Let's just play. I'm going to take that to, I don't know, let's try 0.3 again. Okay, so this the medium detail slider brought out a little bit more detail within those medium, a little bit larger details. So let me show you here. Here's 0 with the medium detail, and let's go up to 0.75. So you see it doesn't really affect these really small details within the actual petal. It definitely affects more line edges. It gets a little bit more crisp between the petals, gets a little bit more detail between these petals themselves. Let me show you one more time. Here's 0, and here's 0.75. So it's pretty nice to be able to manipulate each size of detail that you want. I'm not really worried about the medium boost. And now let me show you the large detail. Let me put that up a lot. As you can see, again, it doesn't really affect these tiny, tiny details within the flower petals themselves, but more the edges and more these larger features within the image are affected. So let's just take a look at that one more time. And here we go. Okay, I really don't want that too strong here, so let's just put that at 0.1. Now, I'm pretty happy with this so far. I feel like I've brought out a lot of detail that I was missing before. So let me show you here. Here's your original, and here's our detailed so far, our preview of the detailed one. Okay, I'm going to close this detail tab, and let's move on to the tone tab. The tone tab kind of allows you to increase or reduce the quality of your brightness, the deepness or hue or tint or shade of a color within your image. It also allows you to protect your shadows and highlights. So let's take a look at what we can do. I'm pretty happy with the brightness, but let's just play around. This is pretty standard parameter within photo post-processing software. So I'm just going to actually, might take that down just a notch. Okay, I'm pretty happy with the contrast. Again, this is just your standard contrasting parameter. I might go up just a tiny bit. Okay, now here's the ones that I really like. The cyan, red, magenta green, and yellow blue tabs or parameters. These are going to let you control the luminosity or brightness within a certain color range. So let's see here. Let me move the cyan red. I'm going to move it all the way towards the red side. And what that's going to do is make the red parts of my image really bright. It's going to not necessarily change the tone, but it's going to change the luminosity of the tone, which gives you a different feeling. So let's take this all the way down, and that's going to really darken up all the reds in my image. If I had cyan within this image, the cyan would now be somewhat brighter, whereas the red or the pink tone of the flower has now become a really almost dark red here. So I did want to take it a little bit towards the red side, so I'll leave it about, let's just do negative 0.1-ish. Okay, now the same thing with the magenta and green. If I take it towards the green side, my magenta areas are going to get really dark. If I take it towards the magenta side, my green areas will get darker and my magenta areas will get brighter. So I'm just going to do the same thing, just put that up just a little. Okay, so here's our original, here's the preview. That's what we have so far. Okay, and the same thing with the yellow and blue. So I take it all the way down here, all the way up here. It's just different options for you to play around with. I'm going to go towards the blue side. Okay, there we are. Now the protect shadow and protect highlights are really nice options to have. Within your shadow areas, let's look down here. So let's look right here in this area of the flower. It's not losing detail within the shadow areas because it's not really that dark there, but imagine if it was a lot darker. Now let's just play with this protect shadow. You see how it lightens up all the different shadow areas and allows you to see detail that would usually be hidden. We really don't have a lot of darkness here, so I'm going to take this down just almost to 0. And I still see enough detail for my eye at least, I see enough detail within here. And I don't want to lose that richness of the shadow either. So be careful with that, because if you take it too high, it's going to start looking a little foggy in your shadow areas. So just pay attention when you're using that particular parameter. The same thing with your protect highlights. What it's going to do, if you have highlights that are blown out or have lost detail because they're so bright, so maybe up in this area, again, this image really isn't the best example for these two parameters, but let me just show you what it can do. Well, I guess this image really isn't the best example for this at all. I can show you an image a little later where you can definitely tell the difference. You can just see when right here in this particular bead, I'm seeing a little bit of a difference in this little blown out area. So just watch as I take that all the way up. See how now it's a little less blown out. You can see detail within where you couldn't before. So let me take it all the way back down. So I'm just going to take that up just a little. And that's fine with me. Again, it's not really making that big of an effect. Okay, so the next tab is your deblur tab. And this deblur tab is going to have the deconvolution technology that we apply in our in focus, but it's not going to be very strong. So, and I'd say definitely use it sparingly here. It's just used for images that are slightly out of focus, or you think that could just use a little bit more sharpening. So let's check it out and see what we can do. Now, as you can tell, that really pixelated some areas, and so that's definitely too strong for me. It really gave a lot of texture where I'm not really wanting it. So I'm going to take that back down, but you can definitely see how it might be useful at certain times. So I'll just put that at about 0.1. And I'll just leave that right about there. And now we can go to our color tab, which is going to have the saturation and saturation boost sliders. The saturation, can't say saturation today. The saturation boost slider is going to correlate to the saturation slider just like the detail sliders. So if you increase your saturation, let's say 0.58, which is out of control saturated, but just for the purposes of the demonstration here. We'll do our saturation boost to about 0.2. And yeah, that's really saturated. So now if I take that back down to 0.0, I'm going to take my saturation to 0.2-ish. back to a normal level. And now I'm going to take my saturation boost to the same place where it was before, and it's not nearly as saturated. So it does correlate to the saturation slider, but it is really saturating, or really it affects the colors within your image that aren't affected so much by the regular slider. So it gives those colors, those weaker colors, a little bit more oomph, I guess you can say. Okay, I'm going to take this down to about 0.1. I'm pretty happy with that. The hue slider is just for minor corrective hue issues you might be having. I'm not really seeing one here in this image, but here's just an example of this particular image and what we can do. So if you're wanting to go a little bit more towards the primary red color, you can. If you want to go a little bit more towards the hot pink, you can as well. All right, I'm not really going to change this. I actually maybe want to go a tiny bit more red than towards the pink side. So here's where we started, and here's where we are. Now, I definitely see that a lot of detail has been brought out within these smaller details, and that's what I wanted to do. And I wanted to get that tone a little bit more rich and a little bit more eye-catching, and I feel that I accomplished that. So I'm pretty happy with this. Now, say you have gone out to this field of wildflowers and taken 50 images that you're processing. So you're batch processing. One simple way to apply this same setting to all of your images is just to save your preset. So let's go down here to the lower left hand. Let's press save. Preset name is going to be flower 2. That's fine. Okay, so and then created by me. Good for nature and landscapes, yes, but mainly flower and plants. So good for flower and plants and possibly good for nature and land as well. And then if you want to write a description in here to remind yourself of something or another, you're welcome to. And then just press OK. It'll show up over here. So say I reset all, come over here, ta-da, we have our flower 2. Now I'm going to press OK here. Let's go ahead and process this image. And here is what we have. So here's where we started, and here's where we ended up. Now this is just a bit strong for me. I think I'm going to take that opacity of the layer down, and that's a really nice trick that you can use when using Topaz. Sometimes within the program it looks great, and then you take it into Photoshop and you say, maybe that's a bit too strong of an effect. Remember that you can always take that effect down using your opacity. So this particular layer, here's my opacity level, it's at 100%. Let's take this down to, let's say, 50%. Okay, so now here's where I started and here's where I ended up. I think this is a more natural feeling to it than all the way up here. But again, it's very subjective, and whatever works for you and whatever you enjoy. I think this looks great. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Let's go to the city image. Okay. So here, let me tell you what my objective is. I really want to bring out the detail within the city, within the structure itself. I'd like to see some more structure details, a little bit of micro contrast. I also want to see a little bit more of this green pop out on this cliff side. And I would really like to do something about the sky, really make it a little bit more dramatic. So let's see what we can do. I'm going to take this background layer, make a copy, Okay, let's just go to Filter, Topaz Labs, and Topaz Detail. Okay, go through the pre-processing again. And when you open up an image in any of our programs, the same settings that you used on your last image that you had within the program is going to be applied to the image that you just brought in. So these settings that you see that were just applied were actually from that flower image. So the first thing you'll want to do is come down here to reset all, unless of course you want the same setting to be applied. So I'm going to reset all. Okay. Now let's go ahead, and I like to apply a preset here first, and I know the creative detail accent is one of my favorites for structures. Let's see what that looks like. Original, and then your preview. I think that definitely brought out a lot of the structure contrast, and definitely took away some of that haziness effect that was happening. Just, the environmentally, it's just the natural phenomenon of haze. So that is definitely a plus. Now let's go ahead and play with our different parameters a little bit more. Okay, the small detail I'm pretty happy with. I see a lot of actual enhancements within even the walls, how those kind of roughed up walls, you see those details coming through now. So I'm happy there. The small boost, I'm pretty happy there as well. I'm not going to change anything with the small. I'll leave the medium the same as well. Maybe take the medium boost up just a bit. Okay. And we'll just leave that alone. Let's go straight to the tone. And let's go down here to the different selective toning here. Let's see what happens when we move these around. So watch what happens to the red buildings as I move this towards the cyan side of this parameter. You see how these reddish buildings really started to pop out. Let's go the opposite direction and see what happens. Ooh, got much brighter. Anything with red in it got really, really light. Okay, so I'm going to take that down. Let's see. 0.3 is pretty nice. Okay, I think I also, to bring out this green, let's see what we can do. Because that was one of my objectives, to really have this, all the moss really stand out on this cliffside. I think I want to make it darker as well. So let's just take that. I'll show you, we can go lighter with it, can go darker. And we'll go about there. Okay. And now we have our yellow and blue. Watch these yellow buildings as we manipulate this parameter. Oops, that was the wrong one. Let's take that back down. Now here we go, the yellow and blue one. So it really gives you different possibilities here. I'm going to take this down a little bit towards, have those yellow buildings kind of get a little bit brighter. Okay, so here's where we started and here's where we're at now. Okay, the deep blur tab, I'm not going to change anything. The color, I think I'll put my saturation up just a little bit. Here's where we started. Here's where we are now. Okay, so as it stands now, we have definitely brought out the detail within the village or the city itself. We've got this mossy texture to really stand out on these cliffs, and we're definitely getting there. The one thing I'm not really happy with is my sky. Now, here's one thing that you can do, and one thing I'll show you really quickly. I think I want to take my sky into adjust. Adjust and detail, while at first glance they look very similar and they feel very similar, but they're very different. Adjust is really ideal for creating really dynamic color and exposure effects that really make your image pop out. And as you can see, detail is best used for intricate detail adjustments and kind of fine-tuning your tone and color. So let's say OK here, and we're going to just process this for the foreground area. So here's where we started, and here's where we are now. I think we're at a good start. Now, because we're short on time, I've already taken this image into Remask and cut the sky out. So I'm just going to take this sky, here's the layer, I'm going to take the sky into Topaz Adjust. And in Topaz Adjust we can really get our sky to pop. Even something as simple as a preset over here. Obviously, it's a very similar interface if you're unfamiliar with Adjust. We do have quite a few webinars on Adjust that we've had in the past and coming up. So if you'd like to learn more about that, just check out our website. But I just want to quickly grab something. How about portrait drama? I think that's more of what I'm looking for. I think the color stretch was a bit too much. I think it might take away from the city, and I don't want that necessarily. Let's see what the dramatic does. As you can see, a lot of this graininess is added in there with this particular sky, which we can work with, but again, time constraints here. Let's just go ahead and go back to the portrait drama. So here's where we started, and here's where we are now. I'm just going to go ahead and press OK. And now we have our full image. So let's see, this is our starting point. Here's adjusting for the foreground in detail, and then taking the sky into adjust. We've now come up with this. I think we've done a pretty good job. All right, so the next two are just going to be some quick tricks of detail. The first here is just going to be a simple black and white conversion, and to show you how you can manipulate the black and white tones. So let's go ahead and just quickly take that into detail. All right, here in our presets, there is one preset that is included in our default lineup that is black and white, and that's our black and white contrasted. The simplest way to convert your color image to a black and white using detail will just be this preset. So black and white contrasted. And that is also going to manipulate your details a little bit as well. I'd like to have my small, well, not too much though. Let's take that back down actually. That's good. And I think let's see here, I'm going to take this boost down just a little bit. I'm starting to see a little bit of grain in the sky. Now, when you're working with small details slider, you may notice that you get a noise-like effect up here in the areas. Let me zoom in on that for you so you can see what I'm talking about. See how it gets really what some might call noise, but it's not noise. It is actually the tiniest details within your image being enhanced. So one way to counteract this noise-like effect or this graininess effect that you're getting is to take those smallest details and smooth them out with your small boost slider. The way you can do this is by actually going on your negative scale with the small boost sliders. So you don't want to go too much because it will smooth out a large portion of, or it will start to smooth out your image. But see how we've counteracted that? Here's 0, and we can counteract just those details that are starting to create that effect. All right, well, I pushed the small details all the way up to show you that, so let me take them back down. And I'll leave, I just want to get rid of a little bit of that graininess coming out. All right, great. Let's zoom out. And I'm going to just quickly go through this. I'd like to enhance my larger details. I'm really trying to make the sky pop out and be a little bit more dramatic. That's just my, my goal for this image. So this medium boost I'll take up to about 1, see what happens. Yep, started to become a little bit more dramatic up here. And then the large detail I think is a good spot, but I really want to play with this boost and see what happens. Yes, see how it starts to really bring a lot of shadow and depth to these clouds, making it much more dramatic than it was a few minutes ago. Let's go down to the tone tab, because this is going to be the most important tab within these black and white images. I'll show you why. These cyan, red, magenta, green, yellow, blue parameters are going to give you a lot of control with how your black and white image feels and the overall effect. So let's play around. I'm just going to play around and show you here. I'm pushing towards the red side right here. And what that's going to do, because the image is an RGB image that went into Topaz, it's going to take that red channel and really affect it. And so here we're making our red channel brighter, which is going to make our cyan darker. Okay, so watch this sky. Here's the normal. That cyan, or that sky, if you remember, had a lot of cyan, as does the walk or the driveway here. So let's do that again. As you can see, that really darkened up the sky. So I'm going to go the other way now. That really brightened up some other areas that I'd like to keep bright. So I'm just going to leave this around maybe 0.1. Okay. Now watch the areas, the grassy areas over here as I move the green and magenta slider. It also, you can really have some different effects here, and you can really play around with your black and white images. Look how different that image is to that image. Just incredible changes happen within your black and white images just with these 3 sliders. So let's go back down a little. That's good for me. And here I'm going, because I know my sky is blue, I'm going to kind of push it towards the yellow. So that's going to make my yellow brighter, but my blue darker. Okay. Okay, so here's where we started. Here's where we are now. And that's just a little, I just wanted to show you that real quick. That is how we convert a color image to black and white using Topaz Detail. Down here, if you notice in your color tab, the way that it works is just essentially taking your saturation all the way down to -1. If you take this back up to 0, all those effects that you did with your tones and details will still be applied to your RGB image, but we don't want that, so we're going all the way down. That is how you do black and white conversion. And really quickly, let me just show you this wedding image. Now here what I'm trying to do is to get kind of a desaturated, more modern looking wedding feeling, you know, desaturated but still with a little bit of color, but verging on black and white. And again, it's going to be very similar to what we just did, playing with that saturation slider. I'm going to start out with this desaturated blush detailed, or I'm sorry, no, desaturated blush. It's a good place to start out if you're trying to get this look. What it does is it'll take, if you notice in your color tab, it'll take that saturation down quite a bit, but still leave a little bit of color for you to play with. Now I'm going to start up here with the detail and play with that first. Now watch how, if you go all the way down, it gives you that soft painterly look if you take away a lot of those small details, and that's definitely something worth looking at again to really see how you can play around with not only adding more detail but subtracting detail as well. So here we are. Let's just leave that a little bit increased. That just brought out a little bit of the structure within the wall. That's what I was looking for. Medium detail, let's take that down. It seems a bit high to me. Yeah. Let's leave that at about 0.2. Okay, the medium boost, let's actually take that the other direction. Okay, so here's where we started. Here's where we are right now. Large detail, I'm not really going to worry about that. I am going to take this large boost down though. So here we are before, here we are now. Now let's look at this tone tab. The tone tab within this type of image where you still have a substantial bit of color showing through this desaturation look, it's going to be really important. It's probably more important than the details. So let's look at that. Now watch, let's just play around here. Very different looks you can achieve by moving these tone sliders around. I'm going to just push it to about 0.15-ish or 0.2. Let's see what that is. And I'm just trying to get those red tones on the wall and everything a little bit more bright. Okay. Now the magenta green within this image is going to be pretty important because you have these green flowers that stick out, you know, her bouquet and this green bush up here. And you really can play around with if you want them a little bit darker or if you want them a little bit lighter. I actually would like them a little bit darker. So take that down. Okay, and the yellow blue as well is going to affect the walls, as you can tell. And so just get to something you like. This is all, it's a lot of fun to play around with, and I think I'm playing a little too much. This is the image I was going to show you. The Protect highlight is really a nice parameter. Let's take that all the way down to 0 so you can see what it is without it. Here's where we are without the Protect highlight. Her dress is very blown out here in these areas. You can't see any texture, and with a wedding dress that's going to be very important. So let's see if we push this Protect highlight a bit. You start to see some texture and shadow come back into this area, and it's no longer so blown out. You actually have a feeling that it is a color versus no color at all. Okay, and I'm not really going to mess around here except the saturation. I am going to take that bit down. Okay, so here's where we started, and here's where we are now. It's a very popular look right now, and is something that's very easily achieved in detail. Something that is just with a click of the button. If you prefer just the desaturated blush look, there you go. That's all you have to do. So let's just press OK. All right, well, I hope you have learned something here today that you're able to apply to your workflow. And if you have any questions whatsoever that Ashley or I was not able to answer, please send them to webinars@topazlabs.com, and I will answer you as quickly as I can. Thank you again, and I look forward to seeing you at future webinars. Take care.